How are you? I am what? Excited. I'm excited to welcome House Amp. I'm excited to welcome Tiffany Clem, who is just back from the recent Inman event. Talking about what's going on in the market. Would love to give her an opportunity to tell you guys about what she's been up to, who she is, why it's important to all of you. But to remind you again, my name is Nick Thomas. I am the strategic growth partner here at Sold.com. It's my job to bring you the best tools and offerings to level up your business to help you close our Sold.com leads quicker. So Tiffany, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been telling people.
Great, thanks, Nick. So at Inman, there was a lot of excitement. We got to get up on stage and talk about House Amp, which was really fun. Got to attend some sessions and talk to some agents about what's going on in the market right now. As we know, there's been a lot of changes over the last year, even over the last few months. So I've been in real estate, and I'm actually going to move to my slide here so you guys can see my information. So I'm the Senior Vice President of Partnerships here at House Amp. I'm located in the Phoenix metro area, so I live in Queen Creek. And I've seen over the last 20 years a lot of changes, right? I went through the crash, especially being in the Phoenix market. It was really, really devastating for us to go through that market. And I've seen how it's changed over the years, the highs, the lows, everything else. So I'm really excited to talk today about, getting your sellers off the fence, getting them to list with you, and then also making them feel comfortable that they're making the right decisions.
And so, just to give a little background, House Amp basically gives insight to homeowners to look at the equity that they can earn by investing. So this is a really great opportunity for you to build trust with your clients at the consultation appointment. Show your expertise, come to the table ready to offer different options. And one of the tools that they have today is pretty cool. It's an equity calculator, and it will allow you to start coming to these appointments prepared to say, if someone says they're not ready or the house is a mess, this is your opportunity to say you could earn this much more if you were to invest. And so that really, I think the expertise that Tiffany's going to give today is where are we at in the market? Like she said, how to get them off the fence. And yeah, but where are you all from? Where is your farm areas? That could help kind of figuring out what's looking good in your market, how this applies to you. Where's everyone calling in from? And Tiffany, if you want to bring up those slides, we can kind of go into that. I think the overview of the market, we're all feeling that. And every tool will help in building that trust with your potential clients and your existing clients. Yep.
All right. Are you able to see my screen? Awesome. All right. So yeah, we're gonna talk first about the market itself. Basically, depending on your area, obviously there's going to be different idiosyncrasies, but what I've been hearing across the board is that listings are sitting, right? And so I want to go into a little bit of why that is and how you can avoid that as a listing agent. So how do you get in there? How do you show your value to your seller and make them feel comfortable that even though the market has shifted a little bit, this is still a good time for them to sell? So if we look at average days on market, that's up 6 days year over year. And we have had an inventory surge. So I remember last year, a couple of years ago, we had all these buyers, but we had no inventory, right? So now we have this inventory surge, and inventory is up 31.5% year over year across the nation. And then buyer behavior, this is a big one. Buyers have gotten a lot more selective and a lot more cautious, right? So if you're understanding going into that listing appointment and trying to convince your seller that this is a good time to sell, you really want to be aware of what the buyer behavior is right now. And again, they're more selective, they're more cautious. So what does that mean for you as the listing agent, right? So June marked the highest share of listings with a price cut on a national basis in the past 8 years. So rising from 18.1 in 2018 to 25.6 in 2025. So price cuts are happening, there's more inventory, there's more competition. So what can you do to help, right? That's going to be your value walking in to talk to your sellers. So as we said, homes are sitting. They're selling at the slowest summer pace in a decade, spending an average of 43 days on the market in July. So agents, this is a pricing and positioning marketing strategy, right? Sellers need to be realistic and competitive to attract buyers. And buyers need to leverage now before supply tightens and shift momentum back to the sellers, right? Because we all know that if rates start to come down, a lot of buyers are going to get back into the market, right? So now is the time for buyers. So we need to be educating our buyers on this as well, but also sellers need to be aware of this, right? So if we look in canceled contracts, this is another really big issue right now. So 15% of contracts fell through in June, the highest level for this time of year on record. So why is this happening, right? Some buyers are using the inspection contingencies to walk away after spotting an issue or discovering a better home. So they're still shopping. And because of this inventory surge, they have way more options than they had previously. And so they're still out there looking even during inspection period. Mortgage rates are still stuck in the upper sixes. Some buyers are hoping for a drop. We realize that. But in some cases, shoppers are just more cautious, right? Economic uncertainty, they're at the top of their price range. They know that if they get into a home and it needs a lot of repairs or a lot of upgrades, they may not have those funds available. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. There's also been a drop in first-time home buyers. Just over 1.1 million Americans became first-time homeowners in 2024, and that's the lowest number since 1989. So buyers are precious, right? We need to make sure that when they walk into your listing, they have no qualms, right? Everything looks great. Everything's been taken care of. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So I did mention affordability, mortgage rates over 6, nearly double what they were 5 years ago. And entry-level home ownership now costs twice as much as renting, right? So if they're going to get into a mortgage, it's going to cost them more. They're not going to have the money to make any kind of repairs or upgrades, right? So what are buyers looking for? If you're going in and talk to your seller, this is really imperative that your seller understands the buyer market right now. So today's buyers consider a home dated after just 7 years. When I saw that statistic the first time, it blew my mind a little bit. I bought my house about 7 years ago as a new build, and have been told by my friends in the renovation field that my granite countertops are just not what everybody wants right now. They don't want my square tile. And so I would have to go through and do a lot of updates, even though I've only owned my home for 7 years. So most of the time when you walk into that listing presentation, it's going to be a 7-year or more span since this home's been updated. So that's really important to understand that. And it's really important for your sellers to understand that, right? 94% of home buyers are looking for move-in ready homes. So when you are talking to your sellers and you share these types of statistics, you want to make sure they understand this is not the market where you throw the property on as is and you're going to get multiple offers. You're going to get wholesale offers. You're going to get well below asking offers. So 94% of home buyers want move-in ready homes. And the reason for that, as we mentioned, is, they don't have the funds to be able to go in there and do the renovations. They don't have the money. They don't have the time. They don't want to take on a project. People are busy. And then last, updated homes sell 73% faster. So your client wants you to come in and tell them how you can help them sell the property for the most amount of money and the fastest, right? So this is definitely where you need to look, is how market ready, how turnkey is this property before we get it on the market.
Can we go back to that one slide real quick? Because I think this is like really powerful data. And relating it back to our community, like what sold.com members, when you're getting a listing / consultation appointment with our leads, this is the opportunity to build trust, show expertise, and coming armed with something like this is super, super valuable. Like knowing that the market isn't super hot as far as like buying, and understanding that like cancellation rates are happening. You know, when I was looking through the chat, there are a lot of like, you know, California, Texas, Florida, you have a lot of competition, you know, with buyers not necessarily coming to the table. You also have to think about like optics, like the house that the homeowner lived in isn't necessarily what other families might want. And this is another opportunity to explain that, build that trust, you know, and give them statistics like this. So this is really powerful stuff. I appreciate you sharing this.
Absolutely. And I do have a page I'll throw up at the end. I see somebody was asking where the stats are coming from. So I'll put that up at the end of the presentation so you guys can see the sources as well. All right. But yeah, like Nick said, I mean, you're really building trust with your seller. You're showing them that you understand what's going on in the market right now. You know, there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of unknown, and knowing that you are educated about the buyers is really important to your sellers. So offering them solutions, and then, you know, being able to go in there and be consultative and talk about what they need to do. So let's talk about the power of pre-sale renovation, right? This is where you go into your listing appointment, you sit down with the seller, and you talk about what are the most common things that people are doing to get these homes market ready. So obviously interior paint is the easiest and the most, you know, impactful thing you can do. And then down to bathrooms, kitchens, landscaping, exterior paint, different things like that. So what this does is it helps close that gap between perception and reality, right? So when someone walks into the house, they want to feel that it's refreshed, that it's updated, you know, that it's pleasant to be in, and they can picture themselves there, right? So this is definitely where you're going to shine, is that first impression. And you want to make sure that every first impression with every potential buyer is the absolute best. So how do we do this? That's the big question, right? So what we want to do is we want to provide options for your clients when you go into your listing appointment. So rather than say, hey, you're going to need to do some updates, you're going to need to do some different things, we want to offer them a solution. And this is a solution for you to be able to offer. So after 3 quarters of declines, home equity made a comeback in Q2. We know there's a lot of home equity out there. And we know that there's a lot of times that people are not able to tap into that, or they don't have a lot of cash on hand. So according to ATTOM, 47.4% of mortgaged residential properties were equity rich. And equity rich homeowners have the means to make a move even in a high rate, high price environment. So as you're going in, you want to be armed with information about how much equity do they have available. And that's where our equity estimator tool comes in. And there's a photo of that there on the right-hand side. So if you sign up for an account with HouseAmp, there's no cost to you as an agent to sign up for an account. There's no cost for you to be on the platform to offer this to your clients, and there's no cost to use the equity estimator. So all you need to do is plug in the address. You don't even need the seller's name, and you'll get some information about what the estimated value of the property is. We use an AVM, automated valuation method, and we pull up the value of the home. That is the home price or value that we use. The estimated equity is going to be based on public record. What mortgages are showing? What do we find on public record to show estimate of how much is available? Obviously, there may be liens that are not showing up, but this is as close as we can get. And then we talk about what is the eligibility, like how much might they be eligible to borrow. So on this property on Main Street, Anywhere USA, there's about 135,000-ish eligible that they may be able to borrow against. Now that is only based on the property. So your borrower will have to go in and qualify as well. So we do have some notifications here. So it's eligible for a home sale loan based on property. But before you invite your homeowner, they will need to have a credit score of 650 or above. We do have a new lender coming on board very soon that goes down to 620. So that will change a little bit. Make sure they don't have a credit freeze or any kind of block on their credit, or we won't be able to find out if they can get approved. So they need to remove that prior to application. No bankruptcies in the last 7 years, and no investment properties. So at this time, we don't do any investment properties. It's going to only be single family, primary residence, and in some cases, second homes. So then from there, you would just click invite homeowner, and we would send an invitation through our platform to your homeowner to sign up for their own account.
I'm going to share the sign up page with y'all right now. This will slide out. You can learn more. And remember, like, you can use this for any client. So maybe you have, a few in the pipeline that are considering listing. Maybe not all of them will qualify, but some might. So I think it's a really good opportunity just to check it out, and it might work for some, but it might be the difference between gaining the trust and getting the listing and eventually closing. So I'll share that now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. And think about it this way. It's a great prospecting tool. So if you have somebody that maybe you haven't spoken to in a while, you can go in and look their property up in the equity estimator, give them a call and say, hey, I know that you were thinking about listing. Would it help if I had a program where you wouldn't have to come out of pocket and we could make those improvements to your property and get it listed for you? A lot of times that's the difference. They may want to list the property, but they don't want to come out of pocket with the money. They don't want to take money out of the stock market. They don't want to, tap into their savings. So this offers them the opportunity to invest in their property, make those upgrades, make more money on the sale without having to, take on a financial burden. The last thing you want them to do is to run up a bunch of credit card debt, right? Especially if they're trying to qualify for another home. So this is a great opportunity for you to go in. It's great for expired listings. If you see an expired listing, look it up, see if they may be eligible, and then you have a reason to call. And I always joke around that, it's better than calling and saying, I'm a better agent than your agent was. I know I can sell your property. I have a solution for you. What if we did this? What if we redid the kitchen counters? What if we went in and did this? You can look at the photos and see what you think they need to do. So it's a great opportunity for prospecting as well, for sale by owners, all kinds of different applications. So absolutely check it out. Like I said, there's no cost to you. And then there's no cost for your homeowner to sign up for an account either. They don't pay anything unless they decide to go through with one of our loan programs, and then they'll be disclosed all the fees and everything before they sign papers. So get signed up for that. Nick, thank you so much for putting that up there. And then let's talk about the equity estimator in action. Oops. As I said, all you need to do is input the address. So when you go in, this is the actual view that you'll see when you sign into your account, and you'll see the equity estimator. You just put in their address and hit calculate equity. It's that easy. So this should be part of every single one of your listing prep. When you're going into a listing presentation, always look up the property, see if this might be an option for them. And then you can go in and talk to them about it. We don't want you to think you're going to have to know everything about this program. So we're going to talk about marketing materials in a moment as well. All right. So, pictures are very impactful. They really kind of show you the impact that we've made and how we've helped homeowners. So if you look at this before and after, you can absolutely see, like, that home on the left, it would have sold. It was originally as is priced at $447. So here's the thing. In today's market, it probably would have taken quite a long time for that to sell. But what they did is they put $55,000 into the property. It sold for $574, and they profited $72,000. So this is really impactful for your sellers to be able to see this. The before and after, they may think, oh, I don't want to go through the work. I don't want to do that. But for $72,000. And so when people ask me, well, what's the cost of your program? And my answer is always, what's the cost of not using it, right? What's the cost of not doing these renovations? It's $72,000. So I love seeing these photos. This is one of our providers we work with across the nation, Renovation Sells, and they provide us with all this data so that we can show you exactly how this works. All right, here's another one. I love this one. If I walked into that listing presentation on the left and I saw this dark and dingy property with the questionable carpeting, I would not want to sell that. And I'm sure all of you probably wouldn't either. So it's very dated. And they gave it a fresh, modern look. Renovation cost was $75,000. As is price was $700. They sold it for $826. And they profited $51,000. So again, I mean, and just think about this as the listing agent, how much easier it would be to walk people through this home and feeling confident that this is a beautiful property, and it's move-in ready, which is what they want. All right. So today's sellers aren't just hiring an agent, right? We've talked about this in all the, commission disputes and everything in the last few years. They are hiring you to be a marketer, a strategist, and a project manager, right? They want fast results, higher return on investment, less hassle, and a competitive marketing edge. So the way that you can help them with all those things is really putting them in the best possible position, getting their house market ready, making sure that everything is very nice and turnkey. So with HouseAmp, we are an improve now, pay later platform. So we are not a lender. We are not a service provider. We don't do construction. We basically connect you as agents to homeowners, lenders, and service providers to fund updates, moving, staging, whether the homeowners are selling or buying. We do have an improved to stay program as well. So we do offer loans up to $250,000, depending on what loan program they qualify for. Very fast approvals, and we are available nationwide. The only two states we're not in right now is Hawaii and Alaska. And if you look over to the right-hand side, you can see what your dashboard looks like. Once you start using this program, you can see all of your different homeowners that you've invited and where they're at in the process. There's that equity estimator and then your service providers down at the right-hand corner. So it's a very easy platform. As I said, very fast approval. Your homeowners can go in, they fill out a quick application. There's no hard credit pull, and they can find out within minutes if they may be able to get matched with a lender. We'll let them know how much they'd get approved for, what the terms of the loan would be, so what the interest rate would be, if there's an origination fee, what that would be. And then they hit apply now if they want to continue with the application. Okay. So this is your client dashboard. This is where you invite and view your client's progress throughout the process. We also have a marketing hub. This is really, really important. I don't want any of you to think that you need to know everything about this program. You don't. The marketing hub has customized listing flyers, social graphics, a lot of information for you. So you can either download that information as is, or you can hit customize and it'll pop up in a Canva. And you can make any adjustments you want to. You can change the colors, you can add your logos, your contact information, anything you want to do on there. And basically that is just included for free. You don't have to pay for any of that. There's the equity estimator, as we said, and then add your preferred service providers. So one of the really cool parts about this program is you can work with any service providers you want to and your homeowner wants to. So you can invite your service providers. They sign up for a free account. They don't pay us until they get paid. So we do charge a transaction fee on each invoice. A low transaction fee is similar to like a credit card processing fee. And the benefit for the provider is that they become searchable within our network. We don't charge for that. And we don't charge if they get any leads from the platform. So if you connect your service providers and they go out and someone finds them and they hire them to do work, if that person doesn't have a real estate agent, that could be a lead opportunity for you as well. So if you're not asking your service providers for leads, absolutely do. But this is a great benefit to them. And this is a value add for you to offer to them to say, hey, if you want to sign up for HouseAmp, there's no cost to you. You'll become searchable in their network. And then we have flyers within the marketing hub that explain that to them so you don't have to. The service providers, like I said, they become searchable on the network. So if you don't have a service provider, you can actually search in the network, or your homeowner can, and find someone in their area to be able to do work. We do work with lots of turnkey providers across the country. We're building out our Service Pro network all the time. And so we do highly encourage you to invite your pros. All right. And then let's have some Q&A time.
Yes.
Nick, do we have any questions in the chat that we should
the more I look at this is such a no-brainer. All this stuff is free. It's free for your clients. Like I think this is a really great way to, like I said before, to build that rapport and your expertise. And I think it's a plus. You can add your own service providers. You have a little marketing hub. All this stuff is free. So, I mean, I think this is a really great opportunity for all y'all to sign up. You can do that with the link at the top of the chat. One question was around... There was someone asking around, like, I guess, Curbio. Are you able to speak to the differences between your brand and Curbio?
Absolutely, yeah. So Curbio, they basically take on the entire project. So they come in, they have their own contractor network, and they do all the work. So we don't get involved in any of the construction. So if you wanted to work with somebody like a Curbio, you absolutely can. Because we actually help with their financing. So we work with a lot of those providers to basically just do the financing aspect of it, and then they manage everything else. So if you have a company that you work with like that, absolutely, we can work with them in most cases, unless they have their own, product. Sometimes they do. But we work with Free Model. We work with, a lot of those different types of companies that do all the management. And I think that a lot of people love working with those companies, because then you don't have to be responsible for figuring out, what's the return on investment and scoping out the job and, basically project managing. So you absolutely can still do that. You can work with a project manager. You can work with a, local construction company. That's the flexibility of the platform, because most agents have preferred providers that they want to work with. And you can work with anyone you want to. The only caveat is all the funds stay within the platform. So we're not going to send the homeowner $50,000 to their checking account, right? Everything goes through the platform, which means that the service providers have to be willing to upload their information into the platform. The seller approves the invoice, and then we pay the provider directly by ACH. So they go in and verify their banking information through Plaid, and then we send them the money directly. They can put in a deposit. So let's say they want a 50% deposit. They can put that invoice in, seller approves it, we pay it, or through our lender, we pay it. So everything has to go through the platform. People will say, well, what if my contractor doesn't want to work with you guys, or doesn't want to pay the fee, or different things like that? Usually once we talk to them and tell them, hey, it's kind of like when you accept a credit card, you pay a transaction fee. It's 3.49%, which is lower than most transaction fees for credit cards. But what it does for them is it guarantees that when they go in and they do this work, they're going to get paid, right? They don't always have that guarantee. Sometimes they go and they, get a 50% deposit, and then they go back to get the rest of the money after the job's complete, and they don't have the money. And then we're filing, mechanics liens. So it's a benefit to the service provider knowing that they're going to get paid, and they don't have to wait until close of escrow. They're going to get paid as soon as that invoice gets approved, and there's a, processing time, and then it hits their bank account directly. So it's really a benefit to them. And then again, they get exposure to people, within our platform to get more leads and get more jobs, which is what they, absolutely want. So I do see a question, can the loan be paid back at closing? Absolutely. So we have two different loan programs. We have a secured product where we file a lien on the property. That's the one that goes up to $250,000. And we have an unsecured product that doesn't file a lien on the property. The secured product has to be paid at close of escrow. They're going to have to release that lien in order to sell the property. The unsecured product does not have to be paid at close of escrow. That one, they can pay it off if they want to. There's no prepayment penalties on either of our products, but they don't have to pay it off at closing. It's a 15-year amortization. So if they get to close and they decide they don't want to, and they can continue making the payments, then that's an option for them, and then they can pay it off anytime they want to.
I was thinking about is if I was an agent, I've never worked with something like this. how do they determine, like, if they have this much equity to access, like, how do they make the determination of how much to access based on, like, what the goal is in selling the property at a higher price? What is that process like in educating the agent to guide the homeowner?
Yeah, so basically when they go in and apply, we'll tell them what the maximum amount is that they can borrow. So sometimes that'll affect, like, if they can only borrow 50,000, then that's what you've got to work with. If it's, where they're approved for up to 250,000 and they know they don't want to do that much renovation, it's really a try and come up with the best number. And they can go out and get bids, they can get all their estimates, they can do all that stuff up front before they determine what the loan amount's going to be. So once you have all that information and you determine what the loan amount is going to be, I always say, give yourself a little room, right? Put a little extra in there. We all know about, cost overruns and what happens when you're doing jobs, different things pop up. So let's say they end up getting qualified and they say, we want 100,000. Once they determine their loan amount and they sign all their documents, they can't come back and ask for more money, right? So if they borrow 100,000 and they only use 80, they're only going to pay back 80. We do have an origination fee. So they would pay the 1.99 origination fee on our one loan. The other one's 2.99. They would pay the origination fee on the full amount, but they only pay interest each month on what they use. And then they only pay back what they use. So we're happy to have these discussions too with your homeowners. If they want to call our support team, we can walk them through what the process is, how the fees are paid, and kind of a strategy to go into when they're determining how much money they want. But my biggest advice is err on the side of caution. We've had people who shorted themselves, $10,000 because they didn't want to pay the 1.99% origination fee on $10,000, which is $199. And they ended up not having enough money and had to borrow it from family. It was a disaster. So I always say, if you've ever been in construction, it's always going to cost a little bit more than you're anticipating. But again, we're happy to walk through this with them. If you're working with, a turnkey provider or different types of companies like that, a lot of times they'll come out and scope the work first. They'll let you know how much they think it's going to cost. And then your seller can determine what amount they want to borrow. But again, that's where your value comes in, is helping them navigate. And we're here to help too. We don't want you feeling like you have to know everything about this program. We do have multiple lenders. So when we talk about fees and we talk about interest rates, it really depends on what program they choose and what their credit looks like. So interest is going to be anywhere from 12.99 to 17.99, but that's an APR. So it's an annualized interest rate. They're not going to pay 12.5% per month. So it comes out to be about 1.5%, somewhere around there with the APR. And then the origination fee is taken right off the top of the loan amount. As I said, if they borrow 10,000, we'll take 199 off, and the rest is available for them to borrow against. There is a 6-month draw period, so they need to draw it out within 6 months. But we want to make sure that when they're going into this process, they understand, the time frames and all that stuff, and you're able to track that within your platform as well. You can see where they're at in the process, if they've been approved, all that different stuff. We can't show you private information. We can't tell you how much they got approved for. They would have to share that with you. But for the most part, you can at least see where they're at in the process.
So I do see some other questions in here, but I mean, like you said, agents don't have to be an expert, but as I'm thinking about this product, I'm super data oriented, and I think every agent should come armed with something like this. But there are agents that can probably make this their niche. They could really understand how to be an advisor, and that is their thing. And all you agents should have your niche. You should know what makes you unique and authentic. Lean into that, something you love, something you're good at. So when you come to that consultation listing appointment, not only are you hey, have you thought about reinvesting to update everything? Oh yeah. Well, actually, I have a lot of information. I've come armed with other houses in your area. This is probably what you're looking at. Even if you, like Tiffany said, even if you get qualified for more and ask for a little bit extra, you can be hey, you don't have to take out more than you need. if it's 50,000, do everything, but really, I mean, the other houses really only have a few modifications. It can still get you up to be competitive in the market. And then thinking about like anyone in your CRM, like you might have had conversations in the past where, you know, they didn't like the house the way it was and they wanted a little bit more time. I know that my parents specifically, that I recommended Housecamp for, they need to do some renovations. They don't have cash. Like it doesn't come to like their thinking process to be like, oh, I can use equity in my house, and like, and a real estate agent guiding that is super, super impactful. But I'll let you look through some questions. It benefits.
Yeah, I see a good one. What happens if the house doesn't sell? That's a great question. So, you know, it happens. What if they have to pull the property off the market? You know, what if they have a health issue, different things like that? We never want to put your homeowner in a bad situation. So with our programs, so let's talk, we have a secured product and an unsecured product, and we have a great flyer inside the marketing hub that has the two of them side by side. With the secured product, that's the one where we file the lien on the property that has to be paid at closing. But there's 12 months, no payments. The second 12 months is interest only payments. And then at 2 years, it has to be refinanced or paid. So some of your competitors out there, some of the agents out in the market, they have programs where if you cancel your listing with that agent, that money is due. So for a homeowner, that could be a pretty big problem, right? Especially if it's for health issues or different things like that, and they have to cancel the listing. So in the secured program, they have 24 months to figure it out, right? When it gets close to that 24-month period, we'll actually help them try and figure out a refinance option, and, you know, get them in touch with a lender that can pick up that loan, or they can go to their, you know, bank or credit union and get a traditional home equity line of credit. Those usually take a couple of months, and if they're not selling it, then they'd be eligible probably for a home equity line. With the unsecured product, since it's on a 15-year term, there's 6 months no payments with that one. And then after 6 months, they start paying with a 15-year amortization. So if the house doesn't sell, they just continue to make payments until either they decide to sell it or they decide to refinance it into another vehicle, which they can do. As I said, there's no prepayment penalties. So if they wanted to pay it off, they certainly could, but that gives them 15 years basically to figure out what they want to do. So it's very important to us. The reason that we got into this business was to help homeowners and help agents, and we don't want to put anyone in a bad situation. So that's a really great question. And when you're going in and talking to sellers and they say, oh yeah, you know, this other agent told me about a program similar to this, those are the questions that they have to ask. What happens if I cancel my listing? Because we don't even require a listing contract. You don't have to send us a listing contract. We definitely recommend that you get a signed listing agreement before you start giving away all of your special tools. But we don't require that. And if they cancel the listing contract, their debt obligation is between them and the lender. We're also never coming after your commission. We're never going to come after you guys if they don't pay back the loan. That is between them and the lender. So that's a unique value add too, because there are other programs out here similar to ours that you can only borrow up to your commission. Your client can only borrow up to your commission, because if they don't pay that back, then they come and take your commission. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that your commissions are protected and that the work that you do is paid and, you know, valued.
I'm going to share the
so that's awesome.
Again, the slide out. People are asking like how to access this. Again, all of these tools are free. I suggest, like, if you do decide to use this as a tool within your listing and consultation appointments, like, definitely understand. But I think this could be easily incorporated in those pitches. I'll share that again. And then there were some other questions around how some of the added service providers are vetted, or is there any vetting?
Well, the only time that we do vetting is if a service provider comes to us directly and they want to be able to invite people to the platform, then they have to go through a vetting process. If they come from a homeowner or they come from an agent then we don't have any vetting process. They don't have to be licensed. It's based on your referral. If it's someone that you want to work with or someone that you've trusted. And then also it's based on the homeowner approving those invoices. So we always tell homeowners, it's a great idea for you to have them do, several billings where they bill for a certain amount. Maybe they get a deposit. And then as you get the work completed, you pay them in increments, because we can absolutely do that through the platform. And then that gives them a little bit more security that the work's being done. Or they can wait and pay them when the job is completed. We really haven't had issues because most of the service providers that come through our platform, agents have worked with them, and they usually recommend them. So everybody on our platform is pretty solid. But we do not do any kind of license verification. So if you have a handyman that you like working with and your seller wants to work with them, then they upload their invoice, seller approves it.
There is another question around like adding homeowners, maybe inviting them, like what does it look like for those confidentiality?
Yeah. So we don't keep any of the information that goes into the equity estimator. Basically, once you run a property, you're not even going to see it again, right? If you have a homeowner that signs up and creates an account, we do not market to them and we don't sell any of their information. So they're not going to get emails from us. They're not going to get anything from us. If someone, let's say you invite someone to the platform and they don't sign up for an account, we're going to let you know, hey, you invited this person. They didn't sign up for an account. Do you want to reach out to them? Because those are your leads. They're not ours. We do no direct to consumer marketing at this time. In the future we may, but it would be outside of the database that we already have existing. So we want to make sure that you keep your leads.
Helpful. I love the market snapshot. I don't think anything surprising, something we haven't heard from, but I think it like kind of wraps on a bow that, you have to be diversifying, who you are. You need to be leveling up like your education, your strategies, but also like testing a bunch of stuff. This might be one tool in your toolbox that might work well. For some, it'll work really well. And, that could be a cornerstone of you as an agent in your brand. Thanks so much for your time today, Tiffany. Really appreciate you joining us. We're going to be sharing this recording after. But yeah, so talk them through next steps.
Yeah. So make sure you create your account. As we said, it's free. You can access that in the sold.com marketplace or in the pop-ups that Nick put in during the presentation. Utilize the marketing materials in the marketing hub. Take a look at those. As you'll see on those marketing materials, there's a ton of information about this program. So again, the side-by-side comparison of the secured product and the unsecured product. Again, we're adding in another lender very soon. They're going to have a ton more, opportunities as well. And then use the equity estimator as a prospecting tool. It's a great tool. So we can't hammer that home enough. I'm sure you're sick of hearing it. And then here's a QR code too, and our client support number. I did see a question about if you have questions, please reach out to our customer support team. There's a phone number there. There's an email address. And if you go to the website, there's a chat feature. And just let us know how we can support you, how we can help, and make sure that you're using those marketing materials. Like I said, there's so much information on there. You don't have to feel, afraid to talk about this program. There's all the information that you're going to need on there. If you have a service provider that has questions, have them reach out to that support line. We're happy to walk them through setting up their accounts, adding their bank information, submitting invoices. We are here for all of that. So don't feel like you are out there trying to do this on your own by any means. We're here to help. And again, I want to reiterate, we're here to help homeowners and agents. We know that the market is tough right now. We know that buyers have choices, but we want them to choose your listing because it's the best one. And we want them to not be out looking for, other properties during inspection. One more thing I want to add. If you are in inspection and you get an inspection report back and there's something on there that needs to be done and your sellers don't want to pull money for it, let's say they need a new roof. If you're in Florida, If you're anywhere in the Southwest by me and the HVAC system needs to be replaced, you can save a deal with this as well. So your client can apply for this all the way up to close of escrow. So if something comes in on the inspection report, I want you to remember this, that they can go in and apply for financing, and you can go ahead and take care of that inspection issue so that it doesn't kill your deal. The other thing too is if for some reason, something comes in and they do decide, okay, we want a price reduction for the roof, it's going to be a lot more than what the roof costs. For a $20,000 roof, they're going to want a $30,000, $40,000 price reduction, right? So help your seller maintain control of their equity and not lose money just because they don't want to come out of pocket for something like this. And if you're thinking, well, I deal in luxury, they don't need this money. Even luxury properties, a lot of times people don't want to take money out of their retirement or out of their stock, stock accounts. They want to be able to pay at close. So keep this in mind, and I look forward to working with all of you.
This is free.
Thank you so much for coming today.
All of it is free. It's free. This will help your business. There's no reason why you shouldn't get access to this stuff, at least to try it.